Hey guys, Kenji NumotTheNummy here with my walkthrough of the top 8 draft matches of the Magic Online Championships. I happened to win this event, which means I got queued for Pro Tour Dominaria, which is in June, my very first PT. I'm also qualified for the Magic Online Championships in 2019, as the event I won was the very first qualifier for the event for next year. So super stoked for that. I get to play in 2 very high value events, very hard to enter events. The Magic Online Championship, it only used to be 16 players. Now it's 24, but 24 in the world, and it only happens once a year. So elite, crew, and then of course the Pro Tour, which there are 300 some players at any given one, but just making the Pro Tour has been on my bucket list for quite a while, so super stoked about that. Anyways, I can't go over the draft for draft picks, but I can show you what I did end up building after the draft portion was done, and that is this deck right here. Red, White, Aggro. 8 mountains, 8 plains, featuring such high-value cards as Imperial Lancer, Makeshift Munitions, and Hijack. But seriously, this deck performed very well. No game spoilers, but as I mentioned, I did win the entire event with this deck. First 10 rounds were sealed. I can go through the sealed deck a little bit later, but this was the top 8 draft deck, and this one was nice. Double Territorial Hammer Skull, Repeating Barrage, just kind of ran people over. Anyways, I'll go through the matches, and we will go through my thought process as well. Alrighty, here we are for the first round of the top 8 draft, the quarterfinals, after I had drafted the red-white deck. So let's go back through the game, and you can already see that my opening hand is pretty good. Turn 2 Fathom Fleet Firebrand, turn 3 Territorial Hammer Skull, turn 4 Steadfast Armasaur is the lineup. We'll see what my opponent leads off with. They just go with an island. I drew a Stormfleet Pyromancer for the turn, just pass. Opponent has a turn to search for his Kanta, though. And I'm not too worried about that. Yes, it's going to let them filter through their draws, but I just have a really great curve and can apply the pressure, so that's my game plan. They kept their card on top, and they played a Skymarch Bloodletter. I attack in for 2 here and follow up with the Territorial Hammer Skull. Indeed, you see there. Opponent binned a Direfleet Interloper with Search for his Kanta on their next turn. And then played a Arguel's Bloodfast. So they've got 2 of the rare enchantments going online, and this was really the opportunity for me to start applying the pressure. I'm going to play the Pterodon Knight after attacking with the Hammer Skull, because then I have a 3/3 flyer as well as the Tapper, and I can back up any of my creatures with a Sure Strike should the opponent do anything. So let's go through the turn. I do go ahead and do that. I played the Pterodon Knight here because it's just more aggressive, 3 power versus the 2 power on the Steadfast Armasaur, and I'm not worried about the opponent playing some random creature that can block this, because again, I have the Hammer Skull to tap it down. Alright, Water Trap Weaver milled from the opponent there, who apparently was just looking for lands, and they followed with a Queen's Base Soldier, which I'm really happy about, right? That's not too relevant at all. I can still just bash in for 5, put him at 12, and then make him sack something with Stormfleet Arsonist here. So we bash in for 5, play the Arsonist, make them sack one of their enchantments. They sacrifice the Arguel's Bloodfast, which isn't doing anything. Search for his Kanta can at least transform and give them an extra land since they've been missing a few lands, and it can just continue to filter their draws. But when the opponent plays a contract killing on my Territorial Hammer Skull, I'm still feeling really good here. And this is a not interesting turn. I have a few options that I can make, right? I can go like Raptor Companion, Hijack, bash you for 7 if I really wanted to. I could just attack for 7, see if they chump, and then play the Steadfast Armasaur, which I think is the better line here, because I get to attack first. If they have like a Skullduggery, then I can blow them out with Sure Strike. So we're going to go ahead and attack here after playing the Armasaur to give our Pterodon Knight flying. This Skullduggery, or if the opponent had a Skullduggery now, it'd simply be a trade. And I think the opponent chumps here. Yeah, so they chump, play bin a Swamp, transform there as Kanta, and Deadeye Plunderers is their follow-up. The opponent's at 9 here, and I'm just going to finish them off with a Hijack. We have already 9 power on the board. There are a few things that the opponent could have, but not too relevant. Now remember, when I hijack the Deadeye Plunderers, it's only going to be a 3/3. So they could, in theory, have... Actually, Vanquish the Weak wouldn't work. But like a bounce spell on the Stormfleet Arsonist would, in fact, survive, let them survive for a turn. But with me at a healthy 19 and just drawing that repeating barrage, it's not going to matter. And Hijack takes the Deadeye Navigator, or rather the Deadeye Plunderers, and they're going to scoop it up. And we're going to go to a game 2 very quickly. Alrighty, here we are for game 2 of the quarterfinals. I am up a game. We're playing against a blue-black, pretty slow deck. And, well, you see one of the all-stars in my deck, Prying Blade. I'm going to go ahead and mulligan this hand. I think opponent keeps their 7, but we'll double-check. Yeah, they kept their 7. I mulligan down to a pretty lackluster 6. I mean, I don't do anything until turn 3, and it's just 2 1/1s into a Brazen Buccaneers, which is not amazing, and then Shining Aerosaur. But I'm pretty sure that I kept this hand. You can't really afford to go down to 5. At least you're doing stuff, and we know the opponent's a pretty slow deck anyways, so pretty easy keep. Slash of Talons, I'm also pretty sure I bottomed that as I'm just looking for some more action spells. We'll see what the opponent leads off with. Just an island, and I did indeed bottom it, but drew another Brazen Buccaneers for the turn. Opponent with, again, Search for his Kanta on turn 2. Me with nothing, which is unfortunate, as I do have a decent number of 1 and 2s in my deck. Queen's Bay Soldier, the follow-up for them. And I'm pretty sure here I just go Queen's Bay Commission, as the Imperial Lancer doesn't do much anyways. I would need to draw a dinosaur, or, you know, 2 turns later, the Shining Aerosaur would enable it. But I think I wanted to just use my mana efficiently here and offer the trade if the opponent wanted to attack. Alright, they still haven't been anything with Search. They have a Water Trap Weaver to attack in with their Queen's Bay Soldier and tap down one of my Vampires. I decline. And I'm pretty sure I just start jamming Brazen Buccaneers here. Revealing a Kinjali Sunwing of my own, so that's nice. Made the Brazen Buccaneers a 3/3. I bash in for 3. Start racing the opponent, who plays a Dire Fleet Interloper, only has 2 cards left in their hand. Revealed a Deadeye Tormentor off of the Dire Fleet Interloper, which they did keep. And they're going to continue to get aggressive as well, as they bash in for 4 here, which is great for me, as, you know, I don't mind trying to race, especially in this deck, and we're going to have some really good follow-up turns here. So we'll bash in with the Brazen. They don't trade. I think they do trade. We'll go see. I think they do trade here, if I recall correctly. Oh, I lied. They didn't trade. And, well, I think I'm imagining I played Shining Aerosaur here, but I also have the consideration of like Kinjali Sunwing with Imperial Lancer, or like Brazen Buccaneers and Imperial Lancer. But if my game plan was to Brazen Buccaneers, I would have done it pre-combat. It's always interesting going back through your games and seeing what different lines you could have taken. I imagine I'm just playing the Shining Aerosaur here, but I could imagine that the Sunwing and Lancer are also a fine play. Indeed, we'll just lead off with the Flyer here, which notably stops all of the opponent's creatures. The worst thing that we could see here is like a Vanquish the Weak, but we haven't seen that from them yet. We know they have a contract killing, but if they have that, so be it. And indeed, the opponent does, and they're going to bash in for 3 here with the Dire Fleet Interloper. Now, I don't really like this attack from the opponent, because then this lets me get in with my Vampires, but they're in the position where they think they can race, but we know that I have so much more gas in hand that I don't really mind. So we take the damage here, unfortunately for me, and what I should have also realized that the Deadeye Tormentor was coming down, but we can just discard the Imperial Lancer, which might have actually been incorrect in retrospect, because I don't get to cast 2 spells this turn, which is a little bit awkward. And having a 2/1 double, or rather a 1/1 double striker in conjunction with Sunwing would be good. But I'm pretty sure I just lead with the Sunwing here, as it stops all of their creatures except for the Dire Fleet Interloper. That way, if they do kill my Brazen Buccaneers, I can still block most of their creatures pretty profitably. If I just play like the Brazen Buccaneers here, it hits a land off of Explore. Then if they kill my Brazen Buccaneers, they can attack in with everything and not be worried about anything at all. And so I'm going to sit back here. Opponent still gets to filter their draws with Search for his Kanta, which is unfortunate for us. But, you know, we've kind of stabilized at this point. Opponent opting to keep whatever it was on top of their library. They're going to bash in with the Dire Fleet Interloper here. And I'm going to throw my Brazen Buccaneers and 2 Vampires in front of the way. Again, playing around a Skullduggery, right? Because even if they have a Skullduggery, they can make their creature a 4/4, eat one of my Vampires, but it's still at least a trade. Right, so they opt to kill the 2 vampire tokens, which is a great trade for me because my Brazen Buccaneers, again, still stops all of the opponent's creatures. And it's at this point that I realize I can probably start getting a little bit more aggressive. I think I attack in here with the 3/3, or at least the 2/2. Yeah. And this is one of those scenarios where you have to realize that, you know, if you're sitting back, all you're doing is playing to survive and not playing to win. And so by attacking it for 3 here, I'm giving myself the best chance to succeed. The Brazen Buccaneers, even though it only came in as a 2/2, can still trade with any of their creatures. And again, the Sunwing is just stopping their entire board. So we get them here as they do double block my 3/3. And on the surface of it, that looks like a good block for the opponent. I'm attacking him with 3/3. I played a creature pre-combat, so they can probably double block here, but we did have the Sure Strike to blow them out. So we're going to eat their 2 creatures. They hit a Siren's Lookout, which they kept off of the Search for Azcanta, but I drew a really nice one here in the form of Legion's Landing, and this is actually going to let me attack this turn. So I get to play Legion's Landing, attack with 3 creatures, transform it, all automatically have 2 1/1 lifelinkers basically back on defense. So that was an amazing draw. And from this point on, it's just really hard for the opponent to win. Even though they're getting extra cards, or rather selection, off of this search, the fact that I can just keep throwing out 1/1 lifelinkers to kind of offset any racing situation that they try to do is really good for me. All right, contract killing on my Kinjali Sunwing. But again, it's like, in most scenarios, it'd be great for them to attack here for 4, put me on a 2-turn clock, but because I have the vampire tokens, it's almost necessary for them to leave back a creature so that I can't race. All right, here comes the Bloodletter. I go ahead and ship in another vampire at end of turn, and then I drew Repeating Barrage for the turn, which was an insane draw because I actually have the 8th land in hand, and it's the 4th red source, so I'm probably able to kill the barrage, return the barrage back, bash in, and just start looping the Repeating Barrage should they not have some weird like Deadeye Tracker to remove it. And so that's just going to be a quick game for here. Bash him for 5, play the Mountain, return the Repeating Barrage, and that should be all she wrote, right? Nothing else going on. I target their Skymarch Bloodletter here with Repeating Barrage just in case they have a Skullduggery or something weird in mid-combat. Use Search for Azcanta in response. I bash in for 5. They do have a Griptide, or Vanquish the Weak. There it is. But at this point, they're just way too far behind. I returned the Repeating Barrage instead of doing anything else, and now I can just cast that and win the game from there. So that's the quarterfinals. Beat the opponent 2-0. We'll go on to the semis now. All right, here we are for the replay of the semifinals of the top 8 draft of the MOCS event. And I recall this match being very close. There are going to be some interesting turns. We can go, or I can slow down on them when we get to that point. But let's just walk through for right now. Opponent is on the play, and we have a really interesting opening hand. I'm pretty sure I keep this hand. Obviously, drawing a Mountain early would be ideal, but even just having a turn 3 Hammer Skull is generally pretty good enough in this format. I would love to be on the play for this situation just because that way, I can play the Hammer Skull on my turn 3 and the opponent is already, just a turn behind effectively. But I'm pretty sure I do end up keeping this hand, and we'll see where we go from there. Opponent leads off with an island. I draw a Pterodon Knight. Mountain. I draw another Plains. We can just go through these turns pretty quickly since not too much going on. All right. Opponent go with a Nest Robber on turn 3. And I'm just going to jam the Hammer Skull on turn 3 as I draw another one. Quite good. Marauding Looter from the opponent. I do find my 4th land, which happens to be a mountain. Well, I guess I already had the 4th. I do find a mountain on time. And so I'm pretty sure here I'm going to bash in with the Hammer Skull, tap down the Looter, and then just play either the Pterodon Knight as backup. But you could also play the Territorial Hammer Skull here. The only problem with that is that it lets them attack in free roll with their Marauding Looter. So come in with the Hammer Skull, tap down their Looter. And I'm pretty sure I play the Knight here. Yep. There is merit well, not much merit, but there is like a slight temptation to like tap down their nest robber so that you're attacking your hammer skull into their looter and being like, do you want to block? And then you can sure strike them or whatever, but that's just not worth it. We also have a good setup in one of the following turns if we want, where I can play hammer skull plus swashbuckling on it in the same turn to get in for some just immediate damage. Opponent plays a charging monster sword on turn 5. Seems good. They're going to bash me for 9. I'm pretty sure I just take the snap block here. We'll fall down to 13, and this is where things start to get a little bit interesting. You know, I have so many options here, as I can play one of my 2 white cards in addition to a 2-drop, whether it be Fathom Fleet Firebrand or Swashbuckling. But I'm pretty sure what I came to the conclusion to was that I think I still just needed to try to race, and I have good burst potential with that Swashbuckling and secondary Hammer Skull and even the Sure Strike. So I think the Queen's Commission plus Fathom Fleet Firebrand is the line that I took after I attack in for 2. And indeed, we bash in for 2. There's the Queen's Commission. There's the Fathom Fleet Firebrand. I'm going to take another 5 here from their Charging Monster Sword, which is obviously just one of the best. Oh, they didn't attack. Obviously just one of the best uncommons in the format. And so what I'm thinking here is they didn't attack with a Monster Sword because they didn't have a follow-up play, right? Like if they attack with the Monster Sword, I get to free attack with my vampires and gain some life here. So another nice thing is that if the opponent just has like the Wind Rider or whatever, I get to attack in, tap their Monster Sword, they flash in the Wind Rider, and then I get a Sure Strike to prevent my dude from dying, eat their creature, and then follow up with another Hammer Skull. So we'll tap down their Monster Sword. Here comes their 3/3 flyer, I'm almost certain. Yep, there it is. And now so the Strider's going to block the Hammer Skull. We're going to be able to Sure Strike. I don't remember if their Nest Robber blocked my Fathom Fleet Firebrand, but we can see through the replay. The power of replay, if that's the line that they did indeed take. And it is. So we ate their Wind Rider, we traded Fathom Fleet for Nest Robber, and we still get to play out another Hammer Skull here. Oh, so this is where things are going to start to get interesting. This is where things start to get interesting. Opponent plays a Sun Crown Hunter, attacks me for 5. Okay, I'm at 10 life here. I draw for the turn, right? I have them on a 2-turn clock. They don't know that because I have the Swashbuckling, but I have them on a 2-turn clock here. So I'm thinking to myself, do I need to leave back any creatures? Right? And the answer here for me was no, because I am going to go to 12 life if I do attack with the vampire tokens, and then I get to play the Shining Aerosaur to like soak up 4 damage. So the opponent would not only need a removal spell for my Shining Aerosaur, but they would also need a way to like ping their Sun Crown Hunters to deal another 3, or have like a Lightning Strike in addition to a Griptide. So I end up attacking with everything here, putting the opponent to 8 and putting myself back up to 12, and then just playing out the Shining Aerosaur. Now this is one of the turns I wasn't sure if this was correct or not, because the opponent's going to attack in here, and I have to decide if I want to block or not, because if I do not block, I do die to quite a few things. But if I don't block, or rather if I do block, I'm throwing away 3 power in the air. So my thought process in just chumping the 5 damage here is that because I can tap down 2 creatures if they play 2 creatures, and I still have a Swashbuckling, I think it's okay to do this and take 6. And I don't actually know if that was correct. I think chumping might have been a mistake, but in the end, it turns out it didn't matter, as the opponent just played 2 follow-up creatures. And of course, we can just tap those down. I did have that Swashbuckling to do exactly lethal. And so, close game. Opponent had a Charging Monster Sword on the battlefield for multiple turns, but I was able to eke out Xaxes because of the power of double Territorial Hammer Skull. And we take the first game here of this semifinals. Alrighty, here we are for game 2 of the semifinals. I am up a game, and I'm going to be on the draw this time. Yeah, this was a pretty medium hand, but I figured since I had both colors and at least a pretty good 2-drop that can block a lot of the early creatures, that I'm going to go ahead and keep this. And indeed I did. Thankfully, I drew a Territorial Hammer Skull to lead things off. And now when the opponent plays their Nest Robber, I feel pretty good since I do have that Skyblade. Alright, I think they play a Nest Robber here anyways. Yep, Nest Robber turn 2. I play Skyblade of the Legion, which just instantly bricks it. And of course, I just drew the perfect curve. I kept a hand with a 2-drop and a 5-drop, and then I immediately drew a 3 and 4, so pretty good. Headstrong Brute from the opponent is kind of annoying versus me, though, because I do tend to end up in racing situations, and the 3/3 Menace can not only just get through my creatures, it frequently eats a lot of them or trades at the very worst anyways. But here I'm going to play the Territory Hammer Skull, and I think I attack in, which it seems really weird because if the opponent does have a removal spell, they're going to just snap aiming at the Hammer Skull, and then I'm going to end up trading 2 damage for 1 damage. But this deck is so based around racing that I cannot afford to lose a few points of damage, even though when I know the opponent has like a charging monster sword in their deck. So went ahead and attacked in for 1. Didn't get punished as they just played a Sailor of Means, and they bashed me in for 3. Remember, this gets Menace now as they have another Pirate. And then we get to a pretty interesting choice here on turn 4. I can play the Brazen Buccaneers and hope to hit it as a 3/3. If I do, then I can attack with the Hammer Skull and the Buccaneers, tap the Sailor of Means, and get in for 5 as they won't want to trade their Nest Robber. Rather, they don't want to chump their Nest Robber on either my Hammer Skull or my Brazen Buccaneers. But if this just draws me a land, it's so bad for me as a 2/2 that I'm pretty sure I'd just end up playing the Pterodon Knight and continue to get aggro in the air. In fact, I think I also jam in with the Skyblade of the Legion here, again, just for the racing purposes, even though it's really susceptible to removal, because when I attack with both, get in for 3, play the Pterodon Knight, they could just have like a Lightning Strike or any kind of bounce effect and then just get me for 6 on the backswing. But again, I think that was the line that I ended up taking because I wanted to be aggro. And indeed, it looks like that's the play I make here, as the opponent opts at the end of my turn. And notably, they kept on top, and then this happens. They attack me for 3, I can't block because of Menace, but then they pass with 5 mana open. So again, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, this is just the easiest Wind Rider in my life, right? Just the easiest Wind Rider of all time. They're trying to bait me. They want me to attack with Hammer Skull, Knight, and maybe something else, and then they get to eat my Hammer Skull. So I make a clever play here of not attacking with anything but the Pterodon Knight, as their 3/3 flash doesn't do anything versus it. And oh my god, you don't know how good I felt when I didn't get wrecked by the Windstrider. Which they do play out, and I think they traded here. I don't actually remember. They did, okay. And I can just play out this Shining Aerosaur post-combat, which blocks everything on their side. So, okay, another really interesting turn here. The opponent attacks with both their 2/1 and their 3/3 Menace. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, if it's Sure Strike, I don't want to double block the Headstrong Brute, but if I just single block the Nest Robber, then they're forced to use it, but I don't think I make that block. Then I'm thinking to myself, okay, what if they have, like, Dive Down or something like that? And so the block which I end up making was, I think I double block the Headstrong Brute with the Shining Aerosaur and the Skyblade Legion, and then I throw the Hammer Skull on the Nest Robber. So if they just have a singular trick, I'm at least eating one of their creatures. And a Sure Strike doesn't blow me out, because if they Sure Strike Headstrong Brute, then they do not get to kill both my flyers here. But, well, you can see what happens after I make that block of 1/3 plus 3/4 on 3/3 Menace and 2/3 on 2/1. Damage resolves, and I'm like, okay, maybe this isn't so bad after all. But then they have a Fiery Cannonade, and I kind of walked right into that. I was feeling kind of stinky. It was not a bad trade for me. I did get card advantage on that, right? They traded Brute, Nest Robber, and Fiery Cannonade for Shining Aerosaur and Territorial Hammer Skull. But my card quality was so much higher there. But, now it's a pretty clear board. I do have a Prying Blade to start bashing in with Skyblade of the Legion, and if Brazen Buccaneers hits as a 3/3 on the Explorer, then I can equip the Prying Blade and attack into their Sailor Means as well. So, wasn't feeling the worst as I drew another Brazen Buccaneers. My play here, so interesting play. I didn't play the Brazen Buccaneers pre-combat because it doesn't do anything against the Sailor Means without it hitting as a 3/3 and without it being also equipped by the Prying Blade, which that requires too much mana for this turn. So what I do instead is I play the Prying Blade, I equip the Skyblade of the Legion. That gives me a treasure, gets in for 1 extra damage, and then I'm able to play one of my Brazen Buccaneers post-combat using the treasure that I gained from that Prying Blade. So good use of mana here. And I don't remember what I drew off this Brazen Buccaneer. Okay, looks like it's a Sky Terror, which I'm pretty sure I leave on top because even though I only have one mountain, if the Skybladed Legion connects again when they're with the Prying Blade on it, then I'm going to get that extra treasure to enable me to cast both of those. Opponent has a Headwater Sentries, and you don't know how good I was feeling when the opponent played that instead of like a charging monster sort of follow-up, because now I can just go in through the air, right? I can just be like, okay, well, I'm just going to play some random ground creatures to block your ground creatures, and I know I'm going to draw another flying creature this turn, so I can just start bashing in through the air, getting extra value with my Prying Blade. All right, Brazen Buccaneers as a blocker. Reveals a Kinjali Sunwing. Keep that on top, hell yeah. And then sack the treasure for red for that Sky Terror. And now I'm feeling really confident. I have them on a 3-turn clock in the air. The Kinjali Sunwing is also going to do a nice job of pressuring them. They did play a Suncrown Terror or Hunters, but I'm at 12 life, and so I can just put them on a 3-turn clock very, very easily here. As I move the Prying Blade over so I can just snap trade for the Suncrown Hunters with just one of my Brazen Buccaneers, which is, again, an awesome trade. And even if they do have some flyer, the Sunwing, remember, is going to make it enter tap. So even if they played like an Arrow Elemental, I get to attack in freely for the turn. Post-combat, Shipwreck Looter discards Admiral Beckett Brass. I drew Legion's Landing for the turn, so I get to equip my Skyblade again, play the Legion's Landing, attack in with my 3 flyers, transform Legion's Landing into the first fort. And that, my friends, is how I take the second round and head to the finals of the top 8 draft of the Magic Online Championships Open. I will see you there. This is it. This was the finals of the Magic Online Championships Open. Again, I qualified for Pro Tour Dominaria. I qualified for the Magic Online Championships in 2019. We'll have to see how the match went, but it's a good feeling, let me tell you that. Anyways, look at this hand. How is this for limited All-Stars of Ixalan? Imperial Lancer, Prying Blade, Slash of Talons, Makeshift Munitions. I know I had some janky ones in my deck, but you do have to realize that the power of Prying Blade and Makeshift Munitions is actually not that bad. Of course, I keep this hand. Opponent mulligan to, let's see, 6. And let off with a mountain as I go with Imperial Lancer. And how is that for a draw, by the way? Turn 1 Imperial Lancer, turn 2 Nest Robber, immediately makes the Imperial Lancer a double striker. Opponent plays a Bishop Soldier here. And I'm pretty sure I just get aggro. I'm pretty sure I go with the Nest Robber, bash him in for 4. Instead of trying to get cute with like Slash of Talons. Opponent blocks my double striker, and I'm fine with that. Getting a Bishop Soldier off in a racing format is so good. This is just one of the premium commons. 2/2 lifelinker for 2 with Vampire Synergy. So I was happy to make this trade, especially for my Imperial Lancer, which I think they made the trade here because they were so worried about the potential of this card. I do have like Swashbuckling and whatnot, and a Sure Strike instantly just turns into like a 4-power double striker. So that was great for me as they ended up just passing their 3rd turn, and this was my opportunity. I go with Prying Blade, equip the Nest Robber, start producing those extra artifacts for the Makeshift Munitions to sack away, and I'm feeling great here. All right. Turn 4, opponent just plays a Pterodon Knight, and again, that is great for me as the Nest Robber just simply can trade away with that while still giving me extra treasure value. So let's bash in with the Nest Robber. They trade, which again I'm happy with. They only have 3 cards left in their hand. I run out the Pterodon Knight, and as soon as I start, or as soon as I just draw another dinosaur, I can start bashing with the Pterodon Knight equipped with a Prying Blade. Opponent here with a Shining Aerosaur, and you can just see how much work this Prying Blade is doing. Now, it doesn't really do much here as I do get the Hammer Skull, oh wait, yes it does, because their creature still is flying. Alright, so I think I just equip, they trade, and then I have a Hammer Skull, post-combat versus an empty board, and a Prying Blade. Oh, they ended up taking it. Sweet. So they ended up taking it. I play the Territorial Hammer Skull, and now they're in such bad position because even if they play another blocker, I can tap it down. I still have a combat trick. I still have Makeshift Munitions to sacrifice artifacts and shoot stuff away. I was feeling really good in this position. They had a Legion's Judgment, though, and that was one of the downsides of having the Prying Blade on my 3/3. It did make it susceptible to that kind of, not unique, what's the word I'm looking for? corner case removal spell, right? Because this can only kill prohibitive removal spell, because it can only kill creatures with power 4 or greater. But still, we're in amazing shape here, as the Hammer Skull can just keep bashing in. I'm winning this damage race because we're trading 3 for 3. I think this is one of the turns where the opponent didn't attack with their Shining Aerosaur, perhaps playing around a hasty creature. But, oh no, maybe it wasn't this turn. But soon enough, I'm pretty sure the opponent actually misses an attack, leaving back 1 creature versus my Hammer Skull, which is obviously incorrect. So, equip up the Hammer Skull, play the makeshift munitions post-combat here, as I bash in for 3, get an extra treasure, and we're already up to 3 treasures now if this Territorial Hammer Skull connects, which means, you know, we can just start shooting either extra creatures or their face, should it come to that. All right, we'll see what the opponent does here. I think this might be the turn where they don't attack with their Aerosaur. Yeah, and so I don't remember what I was thinking here. I'm not sure what my thought process was, but I felt I was just really safe. Worst case scenario, I can sack my Hammer Skull to deal 1 to them. And this, you know, they don't have any like flash creatures that can really blow me out, especially when I drew the Sure Strike. So I bash in. I think they have, it's not a Lightning Strike, maybe the Bright Reprisal. Either way, they have some removal spell here, I'm pretty sure. Here it is. Slash of Talons into a dual shot. Okay, so that was their big play. And this is an interesting decision. I'm thinking to myself, do I want to just shoot it at face and try to race? But in the end, I realized that I probably can't, and I should just shoot off their Shining Aerosaur if possible by sacrificing the Hammer Skull now and sacking the 3 treasures, which I don't even need anymore. And so I think that's what I do. I sack my Hammer Skull, target their Shining Aerosaur. I then sacrifice a treasure, target their Shining Aerosaur. They Sheltering Light in response, and I don't want them to scry, and I'm going to have to sacrifice 3 more artifacts anyways to kill their Shining Aerosaur. They're hellbent now, so what I end up doing is sacrificing the other 2 treasures and Prying Blade in response to the Sheltering Light to kill their Aerosaur, negate them a scry, and have a clear board with makeshift munitions and 2 tricks in my hand. I think we played Draw Go for a little while here. Yep, so they drew their card for the turn past. I drew a Steadfast Armosaur for the turn, which might just eat a removal spell in Unfriendly Fire indeed. I end up sacking it in response to the makeshift munitions, which has really pulled its weight. Swashbuckling the turn for me. Opponent plays a land and passes. I draw a Repeating Barrage. Pass, there's no reason to cast it on their face just yet. Much rather use that on a creature. And I drew Skyblade Allegiance, and that's a great one here because I drew the Swashbuckling as well. So that's 3 damage in the air, which puts him on a 2-turn clock with a Repeating Barrage in my hand. So we'll put him down to 6. Opponent draws for their turn. They find themselves a Skyblade Legion of their own. I think, I don't recall here if I opt to Repeating Barrage their Skyblade of the Legion or just attack into it. I think I do Repeating Barrage, but on second look over, and it's kind of weird looking over your games, I think I should probably just attack into their Skyblade of the Legion, right? Because I have Sure Strike backup. There's not really much they can do here to blow me out in this scenario. They would need like Sure Strike plus something else. Yeah, so I think my game plan was just to press the damage immediately, try to get them as low as I could, as quick as I could, because I have the makeshift munitions. But I think if I were to replay this scenario, I'd probably just attack with the Skyblade and hold up the Repeating Barrage for a following turn. Luckily, I don't think it mattered, as I'm pretty sure they scooped. And yeah, so that'll be game 1 of the finals here. And we move on to game 2. Alrighty, and here we are for game 2 of the Magic Online Championships Open Final. It is red-white versus red-white. This is the top 8 draft, the finals. Opponent is on the play. And I have a pretty interesting hand. It's very slow, but I have the combination of hijack plus makeshift munitions where I can steal an opponent's creature and then sacrifice it for 1. So I ended up keeping this hand, but it is pretty darn slow. Luckily for me, good old Territorial Hammer Skull again, right off the top, as the opponent finds their Nest Robber once more. Bashes in for 2. And the opponent gets off to a better start than I do, or at least a quicker start than I do, but my card quality is pretty darn high. And when they didn't do anything on their turn 3, oh, you better believe I was feeling amazing. As I'm just going to jam the Hammer Skull here. Oops. Just going to jam the Hammer Skull here and pass. Opponent finds an Imperial Aerosaur and attacks me for 3 in the air. And now I'm thinking, oh man, this is a juicy target. If I can just draw a mountain for this turn, I can hijack their Imperial Aerosaur, attack them for 5, and then sack their Aerosaur to kill their Nest Robber. Unfortunately, I did not draw that. And so, let's see. I think I attack in for 2 and then just play 2 flyers. But man, drawing a mountain there would have been insane. And this is an interesting turn as well, as I initially think that I'm going to double block because, you know, they're attacking with a 3-3. I block with a 2-2 and a 1-3. That seems like a good deal, but they just have so much mana open, and I still want to be in race mode. I still want to use this hijack profitably. And so I think I end up just taking the hit and waiting until the next turn to do so, as I don't draw anything of too much note. Shining Aerosaur I can't even cast. And we just want to find land. So I play the Brazen Buccaneers here. Find a mountain. And now I'm in good shape. I just attack in with the Hammer Skull. This time, I don't mind leaving back the Sky Terror and the Skyblade of the Legion to double block. Because not only can I sack one of my creatures in response if they have some trick, but then I have the follow-up turn of hijack into sack one of their dudes if they just spend their next turn using a combat trick of sorts. Once I make a double block. So I end up passing here after attacking with the Hammer Skull. They make that same attack as they did the previous turn, but this time I have mana open like I mentioned. So I make the double block. Surprise, surprise. Opponent has a Slash of Talons for my Sky Terror. So I end up, I think, sacking the Sky Terror and shooting the Nest Robber. They do get to eat my Skyblade of the Legion, but that's not too important. Because I can still hijack their Imperial Aerosaur and then like double shoot their Frenzied Raptor. And I'm pretty sure that's the line I end up taking here. Yeah, hijack their Imperial Aerosaur. Bash in for 7 points of damage. And this is a risky line. Don't get me wrong, this is a very risky line. Because if the opponent has like a pump effect, we did see that Sheltering Light from them game 1. If they have like the Sheltering Light or a pump effect, then I'm leaving their Frenzied Raptor on the battlefield. But I don't die to like a charging monster, so they only have 9. So we do make that attack. I sack their Aerosaur, targeting their Frenzied Raptor. And now I sack my Brazen Buccaneers, targeting their Raptor. And they didn't have anything. And now at this point, I am feeling so confident in our position. We get to keep bashing in with the Hammer Skull if they just play a singular creature. And look at my hand. It is stacked. Opponents play for the turn. Brazen Buccaneers of their own. Explores, hits a land. They attack me for 2. We're in race mode. I'm in race mode. And look what I find. A Brazen Buccaneers number 2 of my own. So now I'm going to just jam this in. Get in for as much damage as I can. Because what I can do here is even if this just hits a land, I get to attack them for 4, right? I get to attack them for 4. And then I can sacrifice both of my creatures to put them to 3 life. And then repeating Barrage the following turn for lethal. We do end up hitting that spell though, so we attack in for 5, and now I can just sack a creature at the end of my turn and then repeating Barrage on their face to finish off the game. I don't even die to a charging monster sword here since I'm still at 8. Opponents play Fire Cannon Blast rather, on my Hammer Skull. I sack in response, shoot their face, they go to 3, and now all I need to do is untap with repeating Barrage. And lo and behold, I win the MOCS Open with this deck. Oh my gosh, it felt so good. Tears of joy afterwards were shed. No joke, literally. But yeah, that queued me for Pro Tour Dominaria, and that queued me for the Magic Online Champs in 2019. So, felt good. I did obviously make a few misplays, but overall, I think my play was pretty solid, and my deck ran very well, drawing the Hammer Skulls in a timely fashion almost every game. certainly helped. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. This was just the top 8 draft walkthrough of the MOCS. And I'll probably do the sealed walkthrough later on. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Please check out the other content here on YouTube/NumotGaming.com. And as always, I appreciate you all. Don't forget to give me a follow. Take it easy.